Hello, my name is Mrs. Thompson, and this video lesson is a 21st century after-school session for the Jamestown Public Schools. This lesson is geared towards grade levels 4 through 6. During this lesson, we will be learning about Benjamin Franklin and Andrew Carnegie and how their contributions helped build modern-day libraries. Before we start this lesson, though, I have a couple of questions or more things that I would like you to think about. What do you think the world would be like if we didn't have access to books, or there were no books at all? What do you think would happen if we weren't able to read or even write? Those are just things that I want you to think about as we move further in our discussion of Benjamin Franklin and Andrew Carnegie. So, before we get started, there's a few vocabulary words that I think you should know. So you might want to grab a pencil and paper or even a pen, whatever writing tool you feel best to write with, and we're going to go over some vocabulary words. The first of those words is philanthropist. A philanthropist is a person who seeks to promote the welfare of others, especially by generous donations of money to good causes. Our next one is statesman. A statesman is a skilled, experienced, respected political leader or figure. A delegate is a person sent or authorized to represent others. They're elected to representatives sent to a conference. The next is diplomat, an official representing a country abroad. And our final vocabulary word for this video is industrialist. That's a person involved in the ownership and management of industry. Our first historical figure that I'd like to talk to you about today is Benjamin Franklin. Benjamin Franklin was a statesman, an author, a publisher, a scientist, inventor, and diplomat. He was born to a Boston family of modest means. Franklin had very little formal education, yet he went on to be a successful printer in Philadelphia, and that quickly helped him grow wealthy. Franklin was also deeply active in public affairs in his adopted city, where he helped launch lending libraries, hospitals, colleges, and garnered acclaim for his experiments with electricity, among other projects. Now, I all know that you're familiar with his little key, kite, and creating of the lightning rod, correct? All right, let's move on and find out a little bit more about what he did. During the American Revolution, he served as the Second Continental Congress, and he helped draft the Declaration of Independence. He also negotiated in 1783 the treaty that ended the Revolutionary War. In 1787, in his final act of public service, he was a delegate to the convention that produced the U.S. Constitution. On July 1st, 1731, Franklin and a group of members from the Junto, which is a philosophical association, drew up articles of agreement to form a library. Junto was interested in a wide range of ideas, from economics to solving political woes, to politics to science. But they could not turn to books to increase their knowledge on these subjects or settle disputes that may have arose between them, because they owned very few. But they also recognized that via Junto's combined purchasing power, books could be made available to all members for a subscription, creating the first subscription library. So, did you hear any vocabulary words in that paragraph that I just read to you? I sure did. I heard the word statesman, which, if you remember, is a skilled, experienced, and respected political leader or figure. I also heard the word diplomat. A diplomat is an official that is representing a country abroad. I also heard the word delegate. And a delegate is a person sent or authorized to represent others in a conference. So, what did Franklin and the Junto group do in order to have more access to books? Did you catch what they did? They created the first subscription library by forming articles of agreement, and they all pitched in to buy books in which all of the members of the group had access to those books. Now, our next historical figure that I'd like to talk about is Andrew Carnegie. Now, Andrew Carnegie was a Scottish-American industrialist and philanthropist. Carnegie led the expansion in the American steel industry in the 19th century and became one of the richest Americans in history. He became the leading philanthropist in the United States and in the British Empire. During the last 18 years of his life, he gave away $350 million. Now, conservatively, in today's money, that's about $65 billion that he just donated. He just gave it away to good causes because he was that's right, philanthropist. And he gave this away to charities, foundations, universities. And this was almost 90% of his accumulated fortune. Now, in an article called The Gospel of the Wealth in 1889, it called upon the rich to use their wealth to improve society and stimulated a wave of philanthropy. Now, Carnegie was born in Scotland and he immigrated to the United States with his parents in 1848 at the age of 12. Carnegie started his work as a telegrapher. By the late 1860s, he had investments in railroads, railroad sleeping cars, bridges, and oil derricks. He accumulated further wealth as a bond salesman and raised money for American enterprise in Europe. He built the Pittsburgh Carnegie Steel Company and accumulated further wealth when he sold that to J.P. Morgan in 1901. He sold that company for roughly $330 million. It became the U.S. Steel Corporation after that. And after selling Carnegie Steel, he surpassed John D. Rockefeller as the richest American for the next several years. So Carnegie then devoted the remainder of his life to large-scale philanthropy, which means he donated a lot of money to help promote the welfare of others. So he donated $300,000 to build Washington, D.C.'s oldest library. And this building dates back to 1903. Inscribed above the door to this library are the words science, poetry, and history. The building was dedicated to the diffusion of knowledge. Now, what do you think the diffusion of knowledge means? What it means is they wanted to give several people access to books so that they can spread the wealth of knowledge throughout the common people. See, Franklin and Carnegie both realized that by reading books and the knowledge they provide, they shouldn't be just for the rich or wealthy people. They should be distributed throughout all of society, making them available to anyone that wanted to learn. Because of this belief, they made books available to the general public through their acts of philanthropy. So, do you think that through those acts of philanthropy, people gained more knowledge because they had more access to books and ideas? I think the answer is yes. We all had access to those materials through their acts of philanthropy or promoting welfare of others. Do you think those were generous donations? I think so. So, did you hear any other words other than philanthropist in that paragraph I just read? The other word I heard was industrialist. And that means Andrew Carnegie was involved in the ownership and management of industry. Do you remember what industry Andrew Carnegie was involved in? That's right, the steel industry. So what I want you to do next is I want you to create what's called a Venn diagram. And this is what a Venn diagram looks like. It is two intersecting circles. Go ahead and take a minute to draw that on your piece of paper. I want you to label one Franklin and one Carnegie. Now what we're going to do on the outside here is we're going to write how Franklin and Carnegie are different. This middle section is where we're going to write how they were the same. Okay? For Franklin, I could write that he was a statesman. How about we go with statesman? For Andrew Carnegie, I can write that he was an industrialist. Can you think of any ideas on what we could put in the middle? I think a good one would be believed in libraries, right? Can you think of any others? I want you to go ahead and fill these out with 2 or 3 other things that you can think of how Franklin and Carnegie are different and how they are the same. After you've completed that, I want you to go ahead and write a couple of paragraphs telling me or your family members why you think libraries are important. Okay? And why you think reading is important. All right? And I hope you all enjoyed this lesson, and I hope to see you in the next one. Have a great evening.